There are moments in life when the weight you carry feels too heavy to bear. Moments when the pressure, the expectation, the pain, the calling, it all feels like too much. But let me tell you something powerful today. You carry what others can't handle. What would crush them is building you. What would break them is shaping you. What they ran from, you are walking through. Not because you're better, but because you're chosen. You're called. You're great. Don't you dare downplay the anointing on your life just because it's heavy. Diamonds are not made in comfort. They are made under pressure. Steel is not formed in ease. It is forged in fire. And what God has placed inside of you, He did not give to your neighbor, He gave it to you. He knew the load. He knew the fire, He knew the warfare, and He still said you. You didn't just wake up one day under pressure. You didn't stumble into the battle you're in. You didn't just happen to be the one facing giants, carrying burdens, and walking through storms while others are living in ease. No, this is not a coincidence. This is divine strategy. You were handpicked for the weight you carry. You were chosen, selected, appointed not by people, but by the one who knew exactly what He placed inside of you before you ever took your first breath. You've got to stop seeing your burden as a mistake and start recognizing it as a mantle. You're not carrying random stress. You're carrying divine responsibility. The very thing you're trying to pray away might be the thing God is using to elevate you. You weren't called to be ordinary. You weren't set apart to blend in. You weren't anointed to shrink. You were called to carry something so significant, so sacred, so kingdom-shaking that it required a season of crushing, a process of molding, a fire of refinement, because what you carry is rare. Let's make this plain. If it were easy, everybody would be doing it. If it were light, they wouldn't have dropped it. If it didn't require strength, they wouldn't have walked away from it. But what they ran from, you were assigned to. What they gave up on, God handed to you. And here's the truth. They weren't weak. They just weren't called. You were. Because He knew your capacity. He knew your resilience. He knew your faith would hold. Your praise would survive. And your hands wouldn't let go even when you cried through the night and bled through the process. You're not carrying the weight because you were the last one standing. You're carrying it because you were the first one qualified. Not qualified by credentials. Not by degrees or applause or position, but qualified by obedience. Chosen because your spirit said yes when your flesh said, I can't. Picked because you kept walking when quitting felt easier. Called because you didn't just want the crown, you were willing to bear the cross. This is why your life doesn't look like theirs. This is why your path is rougher, your battle's deeper, your pain's sharper. It's not because you're being punished, it's because you've been entrusted. When God has something precious to move in the earth, He doesn't give it to careless hands. He doesn't give it to people who flinch under pressure. He gives it to carriers, and that's what you are. You're carrying vision. You're carrying transformation. You're carrying answers to prayers that haven't even been spoken yet. Your back may be aching, your arms may be shaking, your soul may be tired, but your spirit is alive because something eternal is living inside of you. Every day you rise is another declaration that what God gave you is still moving forward. Don't misread the silence around you as absence. Sometimes God hides those He has heavily anointed. Sometimes the assignment is so critical that isolation becomes a form of protection. You're not being overlooked, you're being preserved. Because what's in you can't be contaminated. The enemy has been trying to convince you that this weight is proof of failure. But in reality, it's proof of favor. It's proof that heaven trusted you with something sacred. You were handpicked for this weight. That's why you didn't break like they did. That's why you didn't collapse when the fire turned up. You cried, but you kept walking. You questioned, but you didn't walk away. You bent, but you didn't break. Because deep down, you know you were born to carry what others can't. Some of what you're carrying didn't even start with you. That weight on your shoulders, that fire in your belly, that unshakable urge to go further. It's not just about your personal journey. You're carrying more than dreams. You're carrying legacy. You are the answer to prayers. You didn't pray. You're walking through doors that generations before you could only knock on. You're breaking through walls that others kept hitting. You're fighting battles that didn't begin with you but are destined to end with you. There's a reason why your burden feels deeper, heavier, more complicated than what people around you seem to carry. You're carrying what they never got the chance to finish. You're walking roads paved with generational pain, cultural patterns, spiritual warfare that tried to destroy your bloodline. But instead of bowing to it, you're the one standing in the gap. You're the one rewriting the story. You're the one shifting the atmosphere. You're not just living for you, you're living for everything and everyone that came before you. Somewhere, a grandmother cried out to God in secret for her children and grandchildren. Somewhere, a father dreamed of a life he couldn't reach, but believed someone in his family would. Somewhere, an ancestor died in chains, yet whispered in faith, one day freedom will come. And here you are, not by accident, but by appointment. The weight you carry is ancient. It's prophetic. It's generational. You're the bridge, the turning point, the one chosen to carry the legacy forward. And the reason the fight is so intense is because what's riding on your life is too important. Hell isn't just coming after you, it's coming after your lineage. The enemy has studied your bloodline and seen potential rise in your name for generations. He saw that what your grandfather buried, you're digging up. He saw that what your mother suffered, you're healing. He saw that what your family couldn't speak of, you're bringing into the light. That's why it's hard. That's why the pressure is real. Because you are the carrier of unfinished dreams and the starter of new ones. You weren't born just to survive. You were born to shift something. You weren't born to continue the cycle. You were born to break it. You weren't meant to repeat what they did. You were designed to redeem it. You're the reversal, the rebuild, the rebirth. Everything in your DNA is crying out for freedom. Everything in your spirit is reaching for more. Everything in your environment may be telling you to settle. But deep down you can't, because something in you refuses to let legacy die. When you feel tired, when you feel like giving up, remember this, it's not just your voice that's speaking, it's the voices of those who never got the chance to be heard. It's the silent cries of your ancestors that echo in your footsteps. It's the vision of your unborn children pulling you forward. What you carry is bigger than what you see. That's why your purpose feels too large for the room you're in. It's not meant to fit, it's meant to stretch you, grow you, and prepare you for the weight of legacy. People may look at you and wonder why you're so intense, so focused, so passionate. They don't understand this isn't just about ambition, it's about assignment. You weren't born to blend into the crowd. You were born to carry the torch through fire, across mountains and into destiny. You were born to do what others only dreamed of. You were born to say yes where others said not me. You were born to turn mourning into dancing and ashes into beauty. The legacy didn't end with them. It's alive in you. You are the continuation of a greater story, the walking fulfillment of prophetic whispers, the living answer to the groans of generations. You are the carrier of a legacy that refuses to die. Pressure has a purpose. And if you're feeling like the weight is too much, like you're being crushed from every side, like you're in the middle of a season that feels more like punishment than promise, then hear this loud and clear. You are not being destroyed. You are being developed. You are not being overlooked. You are being overhauled. The pressure isn't proof that God has forgotten you. It's the evidence that He's preparing you. This is where champions are forged, in the fire, in the tension, in the midnight hours of wrestling and wondering. If you feel the pressure, you're in the right place. God doesn't pour destiny into the lazy. He doesn't equip warriors by wrapping them in pillows. No, he allows pressure because pressure pushes out the fake, burns off the excess, breaks off what can't go with you to the next level. You're being refined, reshaped, redefined, not punished. You're being processed for power. You don't put cheap things through fire. Nobody purifies plastic, but you do put gold through the heat. You do press diamonds under intense weight. The more valuable the material, the more intense the pressure it must endure. And that's what's happening to you. You are valuable, so the pressure is non-negotiable. You don't get the oil without the crushing. You don't get the wine without the pressing. And you don't step into your true authority without walking through the fire that burns away everything that's not kingdom. Don't you realize that what feels like breaking is actually building? Every hard moment is shaping you into a vessel that can carry more peace, more wisdom, more anointing, more authority. The weight you feel is not working against you, it's working in you. That storm didn't show up to stop you. It showed up to train you, to get your focus sharpened, to toughen your resolve, to strip off the people-pleasing, the doubt, the fear, the excuses, and make room for power. Pressure is what separates the committed from the casual. It reveals whether you really believe what you say you believe. It exposes the difference between inspiration and transformation. Anybody can shout when the sun is shining, but can you still lift your hands when the thunder hits? Can you still walk in faith when the ground is shaken? Can you still pray when the answers are delayed and the silence feels like a sentence? See, pressure brings clarity. It pushes you to stop pretending and start producing. When the weight presses down, it doesn't just crush, it reveals what's inside. And if God is allowing this season of intensity, it's not to break you down, it's to build you up. Because what you carry can't rest in a shallow vessel. You're being expanded to handle the level of influence, impact, and glory that's about to hit your life. This is why some doors haven't opened yet. Not because you're unworthy, but because the pressure hasn't completed its job. There's still some refining happening, some muscles being developed, some prayers that need to birth in the dark before they manifest in the light. It's not about delay, it's about development. God is working behind the scenes to make sure that when he releases what's coming, you won't collapse under the weight of it. And yes, it's painful. Yes, it's lonely. Yes, it's uncomfortable. But pressure births promise. The crushing leads to calling. The weight builds the warrior. The heat unlocks the holy. You're not in a random battle. You're in divine preparation. This season isn't meant to bury you. It's designed to build your roots deeper. Because what God is getting ready to do in you and through you requires stability, integrity, maturity, and depth. What you're feeling isn't punishment, it's preparation. What's pressing you now is pushing you into alignment with what you prayed for. The pressure didn't come to destroy your destiny. It came to deliver it. You ever wonder why it didn't break you like it broke them? Why you're still standing when others bowed out? Why the same storm that made others drown only taught you how to swim? It's not because you're better, it's because you're built different. There's something in you that doesn't fold under fire. Something in you that rises when others retreat. Something unshakable, unmovable, unexplainable, and that something is divine design. You've been built for what broke others. You were wired with resilience that doesn't make sense to the people around you. That's why they can't figure you out. That's why they watch your life and say, I don't know how you do it. Because the load you're carrying would have crushed them. The pain you've endured would have silenced them. The betrayal, the loss, the disappointment, others would have thrown in the towel. But you wiped your tears, fixed your posture, and kept walking. Not because you had all the strength, but because grace gripped you when everything else slipped. You've got a holy toughness that can't be imitated. You've been through battles that should have left you bitter, yet you're still loving. You've walked through fire that should have turned your faith to ashes, but you came out burning brighter. And what people don't understand is that what looked like strength on the outside was actually surrender on the inside. You didn't survive by force, you survived by faith. And now you're carrying something so powerful, so rare, so weighty, that hell has had your name in its mouth since the moment you said yes to the call. You've got to stop apologizing for the strength you had to build in silence. Stop explaining why you're not shaking like everyone else in the storm. They don't know the nights you cried yourself to sleep but got up anyway. They didn't see you wrestle in prayer when nobody else believed in what God told you. They didn't hear the whisper in the middle of your wilderness saying, keep going, I'm not done with you yet. That's why you can't downgrade your calling just because others don't understand your process. What you carry didn't come cheap. You paid in sleepless nights and unseen sacrifices and secret battles. Don't you dare feel guilty for walking in strength they didn't have to develop. You bled for this. You prayed for this. You grew through things that were designed to take you out. And while others collapsed under the pressure, you built endurance. You became the warrior without even realizing it. While others were running from the weight, you were adapting to it. While they were asking God to take it away, you were saying, give me the strength to carry it. And that's why your strength intimidates those who haven't been through what you've survived. They see the fruit, but they don't know the fight. They admire the glow, but never felt the furnace that forged it. That's why comparison is irrelevant. You can't compare callings when you haven't carried the same cross. Some will walk away from what you were assigned to stand in. Some will reject the very thing you were built to embrace. That's why you've got to stop trying to get people to validate your process. They weren't built for this weight, so they won't understand the grace that sustains it. You're not arrogant. You're aware. Aware of what you survived. Aware of what God kept you through. Aware that there is more inside of you than even you sometimes recognize. And yes, it gets lonely at the top of the mountain. Yes, it's isolating to walk in a strength most people don't carry. But don't confuse your strength with pride. You're not trying to be better than them. You're just built for more. You're not trying to prove anything. You're just walking in what you were made for. You carry a resilience that was born in the fire. A toughness shaped in the struggle, a depth formed in the darkness. What if what you're calling too much is actually just enough for what's coming? What if the weight you're feeling isn't punishment, it's purpose overload? Some of you have been praying for elevation, for expansion, for increase, and now that the pressure has hit, you're thinking something is wrong. But hear this, the tension you feel is not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you're full. Full of purpose, full of calling, full of assignment. You're not overwhelmed because you're weak. You're overwhelmed because there's more inside of you than what the room around you is built to hold. You've been asking, why is this season so heavy? And the truth is, you've outgrown the last dimension of your calling. You've outgrown shallow waters. You've outgrown easy battles. You've outgrown predictable paths. What you're feeling is the stretch of a soul expanding to carry the next level of glory. You're overloaded with purpose, not problems. You're carrying strategy, healing, innovation, transformation, and legacy all at once. The load is heavy not because you're unworthy, but because you've been chosen to carry the weight of something eternal. God didn't give you a lightweight calling. He gave you something dense with destiny, something packed with power, something layered with legacy. And because of that, your days won't look like everyone else's. Your warfare won't feel like theirs. Your resistance won't match theirs. Why? Because you're not carrying what they're carrying. You've got a holy weight on your life, and that weight makes your process different. It makes your pace different. It makes your capacity different. Others are comfortable while you're being stretched. Others are coasting while you're climbing. Others are sleeping while you're interceding. And the enemy wants to convince you that you're behind, that you're broken, that you're barely making it. But in reality, you're simply heavy with destiny. That tension in your chest, that tiredness in your bones. That's not burnout, that's birth pain. You're overloaded with purpose, and it's pressing against every limitation that's tried to contain you. You've been trying to downsize your vision just to make others comfortable. You've been minimizing your calling so you don't stand out too much. But what if the weight wasn't meant to be hidden? What if the very thing you've been trying to shrink is what God is using to shake the world around you? You weren't created to carry a casual calling. You were created to carry power. And power isn't light. Power doesn't whisper. Power doesn't ask permission. It moves things. It shifts atmospheres. It breaks barriers. And here's the thing about purpose. It doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It doesn't wait for applause. It doesn't need a crowd. It just needs a vessel. And you are that vessel. You're the one he entrusted. You're the one he filled. You're the one he prepared in silence while nobody was watching. That weight you feel isn't there to crush you. It's proof that you were built to carry more. That you've been designed with the strength to handle what others walked away from. Don't misinterpret your struggle. You're not out of alignment. You're just on the edge of birthing something massive. Purpose has a weight. Calling has a cost. But you're not alone in it. Heaven knows exactly how much you can handle. That's why you feel like you're carrying the weight of 10 people, because what's in you will impact 10 generations. You're not being broken, you're being prepared. You're not sinking, you're being stabilized. The heaviness is stretching you into the version of you that was always there, the one anointed for overflow. So stop apologizing for your capacity. Stop explaining your weight to people who don't even recognize the power of what you're carrying. They weren't built for this, but you were. You're not walking heavy, you're walking full. You're not about to break, you're about to give birth. You're not overloaded with stress. You're overloaded with significance. What you're feeling is not failure. It's favor that's almost too big for your current space. The intensity of your warfare is directly connected to the significance of your assignment. That's why it feels like the attacks are relentless. That's why just when you think you've caught your breath, another battle rises up. That's why the pressure won't let up. Because this isn't just about your comfort. This is about your calling. The enemy doesn't go after empty vessels. He doesn't waste resources on the complacent. He doesn't launch full-scale attacks on those with no threat. If you're under heavy fire, it's because you are carrying heavy purpose. You've got to start seeing the warfare around you as confirmation, not condemnation. You've got to stop asking, why is all this happening to me? And start declaring something must be getting close. The more hell breaks loose around you, the more heaven is breaking through inside you. The greater the opposition, the greater the evidence that something powerful is about to manifest. The attack reveals the assignment. You're being opposed because you're on the edge of a breakthrough that's not just going to shift your life, it's going to shift lives around you. This is why it feels so personal. This is why the attack has been so strategic. The enemy didn't just throw random chaos your way. He studied your patterns. He waited for the moment you started stepping into alignment with heaven. He noticed when your prayers got deeper. He paid attention when your obedience got louder than your fear. And he panicked because you were becoming dangerous. So he tried to distract you, discourage you, dismantle you. And if he couldn't stop your call, he tried to stop you from believing in it. But let me remind you, resistance is a sign of relevance. Nobody fights what doesn't matter. Nobody tries to sabotage what isn't sacred. The reason you've been under fire, because you're stepping into a zone of supernatural influence. The enemy isn't attacking where you are, he's attacking where you're going. He's terrified of what's about to break out through your obedience, through your persistence, to your faithfulness. He's scared of your next move because your next move has the potential to shake foundations, tear down